Most people think they understand confidence. They think it's volume, posture, dominance. They think it shows up the same way in every room. But there are moments in life where confidence has to change shape, where power isn't tested by force, but by restraint, where identity is tested not by challenge, but by presence. This was one of those moments. On one side stood Queen Elizabeth II, a symbol of centuries of tradition, protocol, and quiet authority. Every movement rehearsed, every word measured. A room where history itself set the tone. On the other side stood Muhammad Ali, a man known around the world for speed, confidence, and defiance. A man who had never been afraid to speak loudly, stand boldly, or disrupt expectations. Two worlds, two forms of power, two very different definitions of strength. Most people assumed something had to give, that Ali would either shrink himself to fit the room or clash with it, that he would either soften who he was or stand out in the wrong way, because that's what usually happens. When someone built on boldness enters a space built on restraint, there's tension. Egos collide. Mistakes happen. But that's not what happened here. What followed wasn't dramatic. There were no raised voices, no confrontation, no performance. And that's exactly why it mattered. Because this moment revealed something most people never notice. That true confidence doesn't disappear in unfamiliar spaces. It adapts without dissolving. It knows when to speak and when to simply stand. Ali didn't arrive to impress. He didn't arrive to challenge. He arrived as himself, fully aware of where he was and fully grounded in who he was. And in that quiet exchange, something rare happened. Not shock, not controversy. Respect. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that lingers long after the room empties. This story isn't about boxing. It's not about royalty either. It's about what happens when real confidence enters a room where it can't rely on noise. And what Muhammad Ali showed in that moment might be the most overlooked lesson of his entire life. Stay with this story, because what happened next redefines what strength really looks like. This meeting was never supposed to feel natural. It wasn't designed for comfort or familiarity. It was a collision of two worlds, shaped by completely different rules. One built on centuries of tradition, restraint, and symbolism. The other built on defiance, self-belief, and unapologetic individuality. Everything about this moment suggested tension before it even began. On one side stood Queen Elizabeth II, a figure trained from childhood to embody calm authority. Every gesture controlled, every word chosen carefully. A presence that didn't need volume to command a room. Her power came from continuity, from representing something larger than herself. On the other side stood Muhammad Ali, a man who had spent his entire life refusing to be reduced. He was known for speed, confidence, and a voice that refused to whisper. A man who challenged opponents, systems, and expectations openly. Ali wasn't shaped by tradition. He challenged it, questioned it, and reshaped it. Most people expected friction. They assumed Ali would have to shrink to fit the room. That his confidence would feel out of place. That the boldness which worked in arenas would somehow become a liability here. After all, this was not a boxing ring. This was a space governed by protocol, silence, and hierarchy. Royal settings are designed to neutralize individuality. They reward composure, not charisma. Subtlety, not expression. For someone like Ali, whose identity was built on being seen and heard, this environment could have easily stripped him of presence. Many expected him to feel restrained. Others expected him to overstep. Ali understood this tension immediately. He knew this wasn't a moment for performance. This wasn't a place for bravado or theatrics. The confidence that had carried him through fights would need to express itself differently here. Not louder, more precise. What made this moment powerful was that Ali didn't misunderstand the room. And he didn't misunderstand himself either. He didn't confuse respect with submission. And he didn't confuse confidence with dominance. That balance is rare, especially for someone whose life had been lived under a spotlight. This was the first quiet test of the encounter. Not whether Ali could impress, not whether he could challenge, but whether he could remain fully himself, without needing the tools that usually defined him. The crowd, the noise, the ring. Most people lose their grounding. When their familiar sources of power disappear, Ali didn't. He recognized that true confidence is not dependent on environment. It doesn't evaporate when the room changes. It adapts. The air in that room carried expectation. Expectation that Ali would be handled, that he would be managed by formality, that the moment would belong to royalty alone. But Ali had never been comfortable being managed. Not because he was disrespectful, but because he was deeply rooted in who he was. This wasn't a meeting about status. It was a meeting about presence, about whether two very different kinds of authority could exist in the same space, without one trying to overpower the other. That question hung in the air, before a single word was spoken, and what followed would surprise everyone, not because of conflict, but because of how effortlessly that tension dissolved. Because, instead of clashing, these two worlds did something unexpected. They balanced. The room expected choreography, every movement rehearsed, every interaction predictable. Royal encounters usually follow a script written long before anyone arrives. Most people enter such spaces carefully, measuring themselves against tradition. When Muhammad Ali stepped forward, many expected him to adjust himself downward, to soften his presence, to become smaller, quieter, more contained. This was not a place known for welcoming bold personalities, and Ali was known for nothing if not boldness. But what happened next didn't fit any expectation. Ali didn't perform. He didn't posture. He didn't attempt to steal the moment. Instead, he arrived grounded, fully present, comfortable in stillness. He acknowledged Queen Elizabeth II with genuine respect, not the stiff respect of fear, not the exaggerated respect of insecurity, but the calm respect of someone who understands boundaries and understands himself. That distinction was immediately felt. Those watching noticed the absence of tension. They had anticipated an awkward pause, a clash of tone. Instead, there was ease. Ali's posture was relaxed, not submissive. His confidence intact, not diluted. What caught everyone off guard was not something Ali said. It was what he didn't need to say. There was no bravado, no clever remark, no attempt to redefine the moment on his terms. Ali understood that power doesn't always need to assert itself. Sometimes it simply arrives and stands. In that room, his presence did the work. He didn't challenge protocol. He didn't disappear into it either. He found a balance few people ever manage. Observers expected a personality shift. They expected Ali to either retreat or overcompensate. Neither happened. He remained recognizably himself, without disrupting the space. This is what made the moment quietly shocking. Ali didn't lose his identity. He didn't dilute his confidence. He didn't borrow authority from the setting. He carried his own, and carried it gently. Royal environments are built on hierarchy. Everyone is expected to know where they stand. Ali knew exactly where he stood, and it wasn't beneath anyone. That certainty wasn't aggressive. It was calm, steady, unthreatening. The Queen, accustomed to reading people, recognized this immediately. She wasn't meeting a performer. She wasn't meeting a challenger. She was meeting a man, secure enough to respect the room without losing himself. The surprise came from mutual recognition. Two different forms of authority, acknowledging one another without friction. That doesn't happen often, especially not when backgrounds are worlds apart. Yet here it was, unfolding naturally. Those in attendance felt the shift. The room softened. The air changed. Expectation gave way to curiosity. Not curiosity about spectacle, but about character. Ali didn't seek attention, and paradoxically, that's what drew it. People lean in when someone doesn't demand focus. His restraint made the moment larger, not smaller. Silence filled the space where noise was expected, and silence carries weight. This wasn't submission. Submission feels tight. This felt open. Ali's body language spoke of ease, of someone not calculating how to be perceived. That authenticity disarms rooms built on performance. Many powerful spaces test visitors subtly. They see who bends too quickly, who resists too loudly. Ali did neither. He stood comfortably within himself, and the room adjusted around that. What surprised everyone was that Ali didn't bring the ring with him. He brought awareness. He understood that confidence is situational, not performative. It doesn't announce itself, it adapts. The absence of ego was striking, not because Ali lacked ego, but because he had mastered it. Ego, unmanaged, needs to dominate. Ego mastered knows when to rest. Ali's ego rested easily in that moment. This interaction didn't create headlines immediately. There was no dramatic exchange to quote, no clash to replay. And yet, it stayed with people. because they had witnessed something rare, quiet self-possession in an unfamiliar space. The moment caught everyone off guard, because it contradicted the story they had written in advance. It showed that confidence doesn't crumble when stripped of familiar advantages, that identity doesn't vanish when applause disappears. Ali's presence communicated something profound, that you can respect tradition without being absorbed by it, that you can honor formality without surrendering authenticity. Few people manage that balance. Ali did, effortlessly. By the time the moment passed, the surprise had settled into understanding. Not amazement at boldness, not relief at restraint, but recognition of depth. This wasn't a boxer visiting royalty. It was a man meeting another authority, without either needing to dominate the other. And that is why the moment lingered. Because it revealed that true confidence doesn't fight every room it enters. It listens, adapts, and stands, unchanged at its core. What lingered after the meeting wasn't a quote or a photograph. It was a feeling, the sense that something rare had happened quietly. New spectacle, new controversy, new performance to dissect. Just a moment that refused to fade, because it revealed something true. Muhammad Ali showed that confidence doesn't disappear when the room changes. It recalibrates. It sheds unnecessary noise. It keeps its center. Ali didn't bring bravado into that space, but he didn't leave his identity at the door either. That balance is why the moment still matters. Most people only know how to be themselves when the environment rewards them for it. Change the room, remove the applause, and they become unsure. Ali remained steady without external reinforcement. That steadiness is rare. He demonstrated that respect and self-respect are not opposites. You don't need to diminish yourself to honor someone else. And you don't need to challenge authority to prove your worth. Ali met the moment as an equal in dignity, not status. That distinction reshaped how people understood strength. For Queen Elizabeth II, the meeting wasn't about celebrity. It was about presence. She encountered someone who understood protocol, without being owned by it. Someone who respected tradition, without surrendering individuality. That mutual clarity created ease. The reason this moment resonates is because it models a skill most people never learn. How to enter unfamiliar spaces, without either shrinking or posturing. How to adapt without performing. How to remain aligned when nothing external confirms you. Ali showed that confidence is not volume dependent. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to win every room. Sometimes it simply needs to arrive intact. That kind of confidence calms rooms, instead of competing with them. This matters because modern life constantly tests identity. Different rooms demand different versions of you. Professional spaces, social spaces, cultural spaces. Ali's example says, you don't need multiple selves. You need one grounded one that can adjust its expression without losing its core. The meeting also dismantled a shallow idea of power. That power must dominate to be real. What people saw instead was power that didn't need to flex. Authority that didn't need to assert. That kind of power disarms rather than threatens. It invites respect instead of demanding it. Ali's legacy grows in moments like this, because they reveal consistency. He wasn't principled only when it was loud. He wasn't confident only when it was rewarded. He carried the same inner posture into every environment. That consistency is what makes a life coherent. The story matters because it doesn't rely on exaggeration. No myth needs to be added. No drama needs to be invented. The power is in the restraint, in what didn't happen, in the fact that nothing went wrong because someone knew exactly who they were. People remember this moment because it feels instructive. It teaches without preaching. It shows without explaining. It leaves you asking how you would enter such a room. What parts of yourself you would hide. What parts you would overcompensate for. Ali didn't do either. He didn't hide. He didn't overreach. He trusted that being fully himself, quietly, appropriately, was enough. That trust is the lesson. This is why the meeting stands apart from other celebrity encounters. It wasn't transactional. It wasn't symbolic for the sake of optics. It was two forms of authority, meeting without friction. That harmony is uncommon. The moment also challenges the idea that confidence must always be expressed outwardly. Ali proved that sometimes confidence is simply the absence of insecurity. No rush to speak, no need to impress, no fear of being overlooked, just presence. That presence reframes what strong looks like. Not louder, not bigger, not sharper, but calmer, more precise, more aware of context without being shaped by it. Years later, the reason this moment still matters is because it feels timeless. The pressures it reveals haven't changed. Rooms still test people, power still confuses identity, and most people still struggle to remain themselves without resistance or retreat. Ali left a quiet blueprint. Enter the room knowing who you are. Respect what the room represents. Adjust your expression, not your values. Let presence do the work. Leave without needing applause. That blueprint applies everywhere. Boardrooms, classrooms, conversations that carry weight. Moments where you don't control the setting, but you do control yourself. Ali showed that self-control is the deepest freedom. This is why the story endures. Not because it shocked the world, but because it clarified it. It showed that real confidence is not about proving you belong. It's about knowing you do, without asking permission.